Hello, and welcome to another Bleach video on my channel. After missing last week due to being sick, I'm back this week to review The Betrayer, the latest episode of Bleach, the Thousand Year Blood War anime. This episode had a lot going on, and it was also probably the most stressful one so far. Regardless, I am going to try to break down and review this episode to the best of my abilities, so let's jump right in, starting once again at the very beginning. The episode starts with a brief recap of last week's episode, again showing Ukitake doing the kamikake and Mimihage starting to go up to Ryo's palace. I have no commentary on this part, aside from the fact that I did like how this time it actually showed Mimihage reaching the palace, as in the last episode, it just showed up and that was basically it. From there, it cuts to Yuha along with Ichigo and crew looking at Mimihage. Yuha speaks up at this moment, saying that you are the Soul King himself to Mimihage and asking why the king is getting in his way. This is pretty similar to the scene from chapter 617, where he basically does the same thing. I'd say that the only real difference is that in the manga he was shouting, whereas here in the anime, Yuha is a bit more calm. Yuha then shouts, "Answer me, Soul King," and Mimihage's eyes open, and then the opening credits start. After the opening, it's shown that Yuhabak is still looking at Mimihage while continuing to speak. The way Mimihage squints here made me feel like it was taunting Yuha, though that could just be me thinking too hard. Who knows? As Yuha approaches Mimihage, the colors become inverted for a second. This moment really confused me on my first watch, and I'm still not 100% sure what happened, but the most likely explanation I've come up with is that Yuha broke through a barrier that Mimihage put up. This would make sense, as we do see that it is able to block Yuha from attacking it. As Yuhabak threatens to destroy the arm, Ichigo reacts, using his very own Blood Vein to force Yuhabak's Ryatsu out of his arm. And this allows him to finally let go of the sword. This is a small change from the source material that I really liked. See, in the manga, Ichigo simply let go of the sword, but here he uses Blood Vein at will. It's cool to see Ichigo use Quincy abilities at least a little bit, because originally he never did, which I always felt was a missed opportunity. But anyways, Ichigo stops Yuhabak, which allows Yoruichi to get past and set up a Keto barrier that uses 3 seals in an attempt to preserve the Soul King. While Yoruichi is doing that, Ichigo continues to try to hold Yuhabak at bay, while Yuha taunts him for a bit. But suddenly, an arrow comes out of nowhere, hitting Yoruichi in the shoulder. Ichigo, as well as the others, then turn to see that it was Udu who shot the arrow. The events that follow, with the barrier cracking and everything, is basically the same as what happened in chapter 618, so I'm not going to comment much on this part. All I will say is that the anime team did a pretty good job of bringing this scene to life. It's well animated and the voice actors continue to do an awesome job. But back to the episode. After Ichigo and Uryu exchange some words, the Schutzstaffel show up, setting up a fight between them, Chad, Orihime, and Ganju. Now, I knew that these 3 had no chance in hell against the Schutzstaffel, but at the same time, I was interested to see how this would play out, and, well, it went better than I expected it to. I'm actually gonna break away from going through the episode in order here because, well, it's probably better to just get the much shorter battle out of the way first. Plus, this way I can focus completely on the Ichigo vs Udu fight, which will be the bulk of this video. So, jumping ahead to a bit later in the episode, we see Ganju throw fireworks towards the Schutzstaffel, and the fireworks all go off at the same time. Gerard, unimpressed, calls the attack pathetic and uses his sword to throw air pressure at them, I think? I don't know. But whatever it is, Orihime steps up, using her Santen Keshun to block Gerard's attack, moving the shield up a bit so that it flies up into the air. Chad then jumps in and uses Brazo Izquierda del Diablo, but predictably, it doesn't do anything. Honestly though, I just appreciate seeing Chad doing something at least, so I'll take it. Now this is where I thought that the Schutzstaffel was going to take them out, but no. Ganju uses a technique called Ronka Sepasin, which causes the Schutzstaffel to fall through the floor. And you know what? I couldn't help but give Ganju some props here because that was kind of clever. I mean, even Lil gave him some props for that. But of course, they ended up getting knocked on their asses by Gerard, which was going to happen anyways, but hey, at least they did something. It's better than them just standing around the entire time like they did in the manga. But now that I've talked about that, let's now rewind and talk about Ichigo vs Udu, which is the centerpiece of this episode. So going back to earlier, before Chad, Orihime, and Ganju have their little scuffle, Ichigo and Udu begin their fight with Ichigo charging at Udu and swiping at him with Zangetsu. Udu shoots some arrows at him and then leaps into the air using leaked ray gun. He shoots at the floor, which sends Ichigo down to the next floor of the palace. The fight continues from there, Ichigo running and dodging Udu's arrows until one manages to hit him. Once again, Ichigo uses Blood Vein at will, which was cool to see. And it's at this moment that Udu finds out that Ichigo has Quincy abilities. I really liked this because in the source material, Udu never learned that Ichigo was part Quincy. So it's nice that he finds out here. I mean, him knowing is not gonna really change the story much or at all, but I do hope that that little moment isn't totally brushed off and is addressed later on. Taking advantage of Udu being caught off guard, Ichigo attacks, but doesn't injure Udu in any way. Instead, he grabs him and yells at Udu, telling him to stop fooling around. On first watch, for a hot second, I thought that maybe they were gonna have Udu hint his true motivations to Ichigo, but no, that did not happen. Instead, the two of them have a small verbal back and forth before Udu activates his Volstandig. This time, though, he has more control of it, doing it at will rather than struggling like what we saw in episode 27. I like the way that Udu's Volstandig looks. It's simple, but nicely designed, and the little arrows are cool too. I can't help but wonder, though, what exactly this has to do with the antithesis. I mean, obviously it does in some way, I just haven't done much thinking as to how yet. Also, does his Volstandig have a name? Granted, not all of the holy forms shown during this arc get named on screen, but I am curious. After Eye catches in a scene back at the lab, while Hashvolth is looking on, Udu starts using the arrows that I mentioned to attack Ichigo. Ichigo dodges them and tries to get away, eventually managing to destroy them all, coming back around to confront Udu. Here, Udu tells Ichigo his quote-unquote motivation, and they use flashbacks from Core 1 to drive the point home as Udu traps Ichigo in a cage-like contraption that explodes. The anime is really playing up Udu being a bad guy, and it's doing a pretty good job of making it believable. I mean, I still don't buy it, but then again, I did read the manga. Though I did start out as an anime only, and even then I didn't buy it, so whatever. The next time we see the two, Udu is asking Ichigo where his honor is, which prompts Ichigo to fire up his Reiatsu and use Getsuga Jujisho. As Ichigo fires his attack, Udu fires an attack called Sternenstab. The two attacks meet, with Getsuga Jujisho eventually overpowering the other attack. Despite this, Udu is not hit, and at first I thought he used the antithesis, but it looks to be more that Ichigo pulled his punches with that attack, which is why Udu calls him out for being naive. I mean, it could still be the antithesis, of course, but I really do think that Ichigo simply missed on purpose. Udu then sets up a final attack, aiming an arrow at Ichigo while the scene turns black and white. Ichigo raises his zanbakutos in the air, seemingly regaining some sort of resolve, and we get a brief close-up of Udu's face before he shoots the arrow. After this, it's shown that the arrow actually hit Ichigo, a good chunk of his body just gone, and he then falls from the sky. This moment was so shocking. In fact, on my first watch, I thought that maybe Udu has gone as far to actually kill Ichigo, but after I calmed down and rewatched, no. Ichigo is not dead. He's fine. Or at least he will be. I mean, yeah, he's missing part of his body and possibly a couple vital organs, but that injury is not fatal. Besides, he's survived worse than that. Ichigo very clearly hesitated at the end of the fight. I mean, his heart wasn't in it to begin with, but by the end, he was very emotional and did not want to fight anymore, so I honestly believe that he lost on purpose. I do wonder now, though, how Ichigo is going to feel about Udu after this. Is he going to think that Udu is a lost cause and give up? Or is this going to give him a hint that Udu has not actually turned on them? I guess we'll see. As for Udu, well, he doesn't wear his heart on his sleeve like Ichigo, but it's clear that he wasn't really being serious during this fight. Sure, he's putting on a pretty good act, but at no point did he actually try to kill Ichigo, not even with that final shot, because otherwise, Ichigo would have had a hole through his chest or worse. Even so, his attempts seem to have been enough for the Schutzstaffel, because Gerard is all, "Well done, newbie, you're one of us now." However, it looks like the only one who is not convinced here is Hashvalth, who seems to have a little stare down with Udu before it cuts to the end credits. And normally this is where I'd start wrapping up the video, but since I decided to go out of order this week, I will go over the scenes I skipped real quick and also talk about the post-credit scene. So while all the craziness up at the palace is going on, there are a couple times where it cuts back to the Serete, showing what's going on at the lab. Nothing significant is going on in these scenes. The first one shows Ukitake's twitching body while Rukia looks on solemnly. Akon and a few others make an observation about the sutra scale being unstable and wondering why. Kisuke then comments on the situation and says that they must hurry. I don't really have any commentary on this scene aside from it being pretty good. I also do like that they keep the viewer updated on what's going on at the lab every so often. There's another scene a little later with Yuhabak trying to get to the Soul King again. It looks like Mimi Hage fell off the crystal while all the craziness was going on because it's on the floor. But when Yuhabak reaches out, it reawakens, blocking him from touching the crystal. It again cuts to the lab, where Rukia makes a comment about Ukitake still fighting. I'm not going to look too hard into that, but that was an interesting comment. Up in the palace, Mimi Hage is still pushing back against Yuha. Again, nothing crazy here, but I do want to comment that I think it's cool that they have Mimi Hage putting up a bit of a fight here. And then there's the post-credits scene. Here, Yuhabak finally manages to destroy Mimi Hage. He then asks the Schutzstaffel to give him their power. All of them raise Reishi swords into the air, which allows Yuhabak to create one of his own. He then slices the Soul King's crystal, freeing the king's corpse, basically. And he absorbs the Soul King. This scene was crazy. At first, I thought that they were basically just gonna follow what happens originally in the manga, but nope. They added this whole thing with Yuhabak slashing the crystal and everything. I find it interesting that it looks like he destroys Mimi Hage rather than absorbing it like in the manga, though, of course, he probably still absorbs it here, it just doesn't look that way. But anyways, as he absorbs the Soul King, the power overwhelms Yhwach for a sec, before we finally get a brief glimpse of, well, this version of Yhwach. And with that, the episode ends. And once again, we're at the end of another Bleach review. This was another awesome episode. I continue to be impressed with what they're doing in the anime so far, and I just know that they're going to keep up the good work. As usual, I hope you all enjoyed this. If you did, awesome. But if not, well, thanks for watching anyways. Have a great rest of your day, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Goodbye.